July pressed against the windows of Grant Mercy Trauma Center and found a way inside anyway. The corridors held the clean sting of antiseptic and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. On the 5th floor, a conference room glowed blue with a projector. Dr. Leonard Huxley planted himself at the head of the table and reminded everyone where they stood. "Observe," he said. "Do not theorize." Chairs creaked, residents nodded. The hierarchy settled like a weight. Ava Calder stayed near the back tie of her scrub pants, neat sleeves of a compression shirt hidden under hospital green. The patient on the screen was a string of facts and numbers. Frank Delaney, 58, scheduled for a laparoscopic cholecystectomy, right upper quadrant pain, nausea, ultrasound positive for stones, pre-op labs clean. Ava's gaze stalled on 2 throwaway lines, pain radiating to the shoulder, occasional chest tightness deemed unrelated. Her throat went dry. She wrote nothing. She saw the arc of a story no one had told. "Next case," Huxley said. Ava felt her shoulders square out of habit. It was a movement from another life, the one that taught you to stand silent until the moment mattered. She let the observation die, then slipped into the hall before anyone could read her face. The locker room hummed with an old vent and the sweet copper smell of someone's forgotten protein shake. Ava opened her locker and worked quickly, compression layer first long sleeves to the wrist, scrub top pulled over it. The fabric muted the air against her skin. Her hands moved in the tight, economical rhythm of someone who had practiced in low light. "You always run cold," a voice asked. Maya Ito leaned in the doorway, hair up, badge clipped straight, curious eyes not unkind. Ava adjusted the sleeve until it covered every inch of forearm. "Sometimes the AC wins," Ava said. "Not in July." They shared a quiet smile. Maya's gaze drifted to the neat coil of sutures Ava had stashed in the door. Her mouth opened like she had a follow-up. She let it close. Sam Park passed behind them with a tray of instruments and a coffee that smelled real. Navy anchor tattoo peeking from his cuff. He took in Ava's hands the way some people check weather. "UNED this afternoon." "I am," Ava said. "Plenty of work there." He kept moving. By noon, the emergency department was a pulse. Monitors chattered doors, slid a child cried somewhere behind curtains. Ava took charts and gave charts. She found a rhythm inside the noise, a cadence that fit the beep-beep from the walls. 90 seconds mattered more than people liked to admit. It happened near the nurses' station. Huxley arms folded a tablet balanced in one palm. Residents clustered around him. He angled the screen toward Ava. "These are your notes from last night. Motorcycle multi-trauma. Primary and secondary survey. 12 injuries documented. 3 complications flagged. Completed in 90 seconds. Ava kept her voice level. "I was thorough and efficient." Or reckless. His gaze did not blink. "Speed is not the goal. Accuracy is why I'm fast." Murmurs rose from the ring of scrubs. Sam watched from the end of the counter. Maya behind Huxley bit the inside of her cheek. Huxley let the silence expand. "This is not a race," he said. "Slow down." Ava nodded once. She had learned how to nod without giving anything away. After he left, she sank into a computer terminal and pulled up Frank Delaney again. The lab panel looked acceptable. The words did not. Her pulse did not change, but the world seemed to sharpen. She picked up the phone. "This is Dr. Calder. I need a troponin panel on Frank Delaney, MRN, ending in 895. A tech hesitated. "He is cleared for surgery, doctor. That is a gallbladder case." "I am aware. Please draw it now." A beat. "Yes, doctor." Ava hung up and returned to the flow. A teenager with a forearm laceration tried to hide a tremor. She steadied his wrist and showed him where to look so he did not see the needle. She chose interrupted sutures. 1, 2, 3 tie. Small knots that would hold even if one failed. He watched her hands and calmed. Diego Cruz pushed a gurney past with a woman who smelled faintly of river mud. He glanced at Ava's stitchwork and lifted a brow. Noted. He had a paramedic's way of clocking details. The key clip on his belt flashed when he turned. It was stamped with the outline of a raven. The lab posted the troponin 2 hours later. Borderline elevated, not screaming, not normal. Ava printed it and found Huxley and pre-op already scrubbed for someone else. The antiseptic smell was stronger here, a sting in the back of the nose. He took the paper and scanned the numbers with practiced boredom. "Inflammation can bump troponin," he said. "Do not chase zebras." "His pain radiates to the shoulder," Ava said. "He reports chest tightness. He is a 58-year-old with risk factors. We should delay and work him up." EKG was normal. He handed the page back. "Surgery proceeds." She held the paper a second longer than necessary. "Understood." In pre-op, Frank sat upright on the rolling bed, hands folded as if he had rehearsed calm. He tried to smile when Ava checked his ID band. "You the one who ordered the extra heart test?" he asked. "I am," Ava said. She pulled his blanket up to the chest. "Just being thorough. My heart is fine. This thing just needs to come out." His voice grew thinner at the edges. Ava did not argue. She adjusted the pulse oximeter and met his eyes. He had the look of a man who built things and relied on them to stay built. "We will take good care of you," she said. The OR felt colder than the rest of the floor. The door seals whispered shut behind her. The anesthesiologist settled the tube into place. Huxley stood at the table, hands up, gaze on the monitor. "Let's begin," he said. Camera in insufflation, 4 ports like tiny star maps on skin. The feed rolled across a gallbladder that looked angry enough to swear. Huxley narrated each step for the room. Ava managed retraction and suture tails, and anything else that kept her in motion without making noise. Maya and 2 other residents watched from the gallery, faces close to glass. "Beep, beep." Ava counted without looking. The anesthesiologist turned a dial and scanned the EKG. "I'm seeing some irregularity." "Anesthesia can handle that," Huxley said. He did not look up. The instruments moved in smooth arcs. The screen showed a pale map of ducts and vessels. The beep nudged off rhythm. Not dramatic, just enough for the hair at the base of the neck to notice. Ava glanced at the EKG on the side monitor. ST segments dipped like the edge of a wave. Lateral leads whispering something you could pretend not to hear. A memory crossed her skin, a cold that did not belong to this room. Black water rushing through a broken door. Diesel in the throat. Hands searching in a dark that pressed back. She pressed her tongue to the roof of her mouth and set the memory down. "Dr. Huxley," she said, "calm. I am concerned about ischemia." "Vitals are being managed," he said. The anesthesiologist cleared his throat. "ST changes are persistent." Huxley paused for a slice of time that felt longer than it was. Then he resumed. "We are almost there. 90 seconds can be a map of the world." Ava watched the monitor and counted in her head. She watched the dip deepen. She looked at Frank's face beyond the drape. She looked back at the numbers. "Dr. Huxley," she said again. "Not now," he said. She stepped closer to the screen just enough to see the curve of the trace clearly. The depression spread across another lead tide pulling back. She set her jaw. The smell of cautery snagged the air. She lifted her eyes to the gallery. Maya's breath fogged a tiny patch of glass. The alarm tripped hard. A long tone climbed, cut came back louder. Frank's trace flattened into a quiet, impossible line. Beep left and became one note. The room tightened. Hands froze for a fraction, then moved. The anesthesiologist called it. The nurse reached for the crash cart. Huxley's voice hit protocol speed. "Start compressions, charge to 200, epi ready." Ava was already moving, feet silent on the tile. Hand on the intercom button. Her other hand found the edge of her sleeve and tugged it once. A reflex she did not need anymore. The gallery light caught the ghost of a scar that ran pale under fabric before she covered it again. "Open the thoracotomy tray," she said. "Now." The beep kept singing. The room held its breath. The air tasted like metal and heat. Somewhere far away, water slapped a memory. Here the clock started its count. Beep became one long line. She pushed through the scrub room door. She scrubbed fast cold water over hot skin soap sting, caught in the knuckles. The intercom clicked when she pushed the button with an elbow. "Open the thoracotomy tray," Ava said. "Now." She re-entered the room, gloved and gowned. The tone on the monitor filled the space. The line stayed flat. Huxley held a paddle. His jaw worked once, twice. "This is an ACLS case," he said. "He needs direct access," Ava said. Sam Park stood at the instrument table. He did not ask who she thought she was. He placed a scalpel in her palm. The handle fit like it remembered her. Ava set the mark at the 5th intercostal space and cut. Skin gave fascia, whispered muscle, parted with the clean pull of a curtain on a track. She did not hesitate. The rib spreader went in. Sam cranked it open until bone creaked and the space bloomed. Air shifted. Heat rushed her cheeks. "Pericardium," she said. She opened the thin white sac and it let go in a soft sigh. The heart lay still, a dark fist that would not close. She wrapped both hands around it and squeezed. Once, twice, 3 times. The motion set a rhythm for the room. The monitor stuttered, then argued, then listened. "Small balloon catheter," she said, "the smallest." Sam passed it. Ava threaded it into the left anterior, descending by feel and memory. No hurry, no slack. A breath in, a breath out. The balloon pushed past the clot and nudged it free. For a half second, nothing happened. Then the heart twitched under her fingers with new weight. Another squeeze, and it met her halfway. The tone on the monitor broke into beeps. Thin at first, then steadier, then there. She kept compression a few more cycles. She felt warmth return to tissue. She pulled the catheter, irrigated, checked for bleed, and placed a quick stitch to close the pericardium enough to keep it honest without strangling the work she had just done. The rib spreader came out. She packed and covered. The lung rolled with a quiet rise. Silence took a seat around the table. The door opened. Dr. Patrice Onyekwe, chief of cardiothoracic, stepped in with her team. Her eyes moved once over the field. Incision line clean, exposure exact, minimal trauma. Her gaze cut to the monitor, then to Ava. "Who performed the thoracotomy?" Onyekwe asked. "I did," Ava said. Onyekwe nodded. "We will transfer to the cardiac suite. Beautiful work." Huxley lowered the paddle to the tray. His mouth opened and shut around words that did not arrive. He looked at Ava as if she had walked in with a new law of physics. They handed the case off and the room emptied in layers. The sound returned to normal hospital volume. Ava stepped into the scrub room and peeled off her gloves. Her fingers trembled for a heartbeat, then went still. She rinsed until the water cooled her skin. Maya Ito slipped in behind her. She had mask lines on her cheeks and wide eyes that tried not to be wide. "You did that in 90 seconds, she said. Ava shut the faucet. He needed it. "Where did you learn that?" "Practice," Ava said. Maya studied her face like there might be an answer written behind the eyes. She let it go. Onyekwe said beautiful work. Ava pressed the towel to her hands until the cotton forced them dry. Good. The break room smelled like stale coffee and bleach. Diego Cruz leaned against the counter, radio at his shoulder uniform damp with the kind of sweat that comes from lifting people instead of weights. He watched Ava pour water into a paper cup. "Those stitches on the kid earlier," he said. "Interrupted 3 throws, tails tucked. Same as I saw downrange. People forget that style unless they used it a lot." Ava took a sip. "Sometimes you want a knot that can fail without the whole line going." Diego tapped his key clip. The Raven charm flashed once. "Looks like you carry a few lines of your own." She looked at the sink drain and said nothing. In the afternoon, Huxley called a meeting in the small conference room. Residents filled chairs. The blinds threw gray stripes on the table. He stood with a tablet and an unreadable face. 6 weeks in, he said. Dr. Calder shows suture time significantly faster than cohort. Triage notes atypically detailed for a first year. Procedural confidence not standard. Maya stared at the warning light on the projector. Diego stood in the back with arms folded, a paramedic among white coats. Huxley scrolled. "Your file is clean. Medical school on time. Undergrad conventional. There is an 8-year period before medical school that reads as volunteer work abroad. That term is vague." Ava kept her hands at her sides. "Trauma-focused clinics. Various locations." "Names of those locations?" Huxley asked. "Various," Ava said. "Your technique is not self-taught," he said. "I prepare for procedures," Ava said. "I study what works." He watched her for a full beat. The room did not move. Someone's pen clicked twice and got the message to stop. "You will assist on a routine gallbladder tomorrow," Huxley said. "You will observe. You will not improvise." "Understood," Ava said. "Everyone else will observe from the gallery," he added. "We will pay attention to proper pacing." Chairs scraped. People stood. The meeting dissolved into whispers. Maya came alongside Ava in the hall. "He is being unfair. He is being thorough," Ava said. "Same difference today," Maya said. The evening shifted into a series of small engines. Ava moved from bay to bay, sutured set lines, wrote notes that matched what had happened and not what would look good later. Sam handed her a chart and a coffee without comment. They worked like they had shared a shift for years. The hospital's quiet hour never lasts. Alarms layered on top of conversation without asking permission. A triage nurse called for help with a combative intox. A child dropped a tray and panicked at the noise. A visitor cried in a dim corner with her face in her hands. The hum did what it always does. It soaked into the walls and became background. Ava checked the screen over the main desk because habit taught her to read the room and the boards. Frank Delaney's status now read in transit to cardiac care. She let her fingers hover near the edge of her sleeve, then let her hand fall. The compression fabric warmed with her skin. The overhead pager clicked. all available trauma staff to the bay. Every head lifted. A breathless intern hustled past, clutching a clipboard that was already bent. Diego's radio barked. He pressed it to his ear and listened without blinking. His mouth set, then moved. Bridge collapse, he said to no one and everyone. Fulton Bridge. Multiple vehicles in the water, 30 plus inbound. The ambulance bay lights washed the windows in a red that pulsed like a heartbeat turned outside in. Sirens rose and braided together. Doors opened. People ran. Ava was already moving. She pulled her cap on as she walked. She tightened the tie at her scrub pants. She pulled at her sleeve once, then let it be. The air in the corridor tasted like static. She hit the trauma doors at a jog and stepped into a space that was about to become a different kind of day. The trauma bay met the sirens with open doors. Gurneys rolled. Voices stacked. Diesel and wet concrete pushed in from the street. Nurses marked foreheads with grease pencil. Black for expectant. Red for now. Yellow for later. Ava took a station near the center. She called out assignments and moved where hands hesitated. Huxley stood 2 bays over and took the first blunt force abdomen. Sam set up a line of airway carts like a parade of small silver animals. Maya clipped on a headset and mirrored vitals to the board. Diego crashed through with a long spine board and a man strapped down tight. Late 20s, face ash pale under grit. Right chest floating in a wrong rhythm. Each breath pulled the broken segment inward like a trapdoor. His lips had gone the color of plums. Male 28, Diego said. Vehicle crushed under beam, suspect cardiac tamponade, pressure 60/40 and falling. The patient's eyes tracked the ceiling lights, then pinned on Ava. He snatched her wrist with a surprising grip. Ravens do not leave anyone, he whispered. You stayed. Ava felt the cold from a different river come up her arm. She leaned in until only he could hear. You are here. He let go. The monitor told a thin story that was getting thinner. Pericardiocentesis tray, Ava said. Bedside now. The nurse pulled the kit from a red bin. Sam slid the ultrasound into place. Ava bared the skin below the sternum and found her angle with the probe. The image lit gray and black. Fluid where there should be none. The heart compressed inside a tight ring. Needle, she said. She advanced with steady pressure. A tremor from the patient's ribs threatened to throw the line off. She found the give of the sac and aspirated dark blood. 50 milliliters. 70. 100. The wave on the monitor grew taller, less strangled. The man's jaw unclenched. His name tag read Briggs. Noah. His eyes fluttered shut. The blood pressure crept up by 5s. Get him to OR for definitive, Ava said. Huxley stepped into view, his gloves wet. He scanned the monitor and the syringe. How did you know to go subsiphoid without imaging beyond that? I have done it 47 times, Ava said. He held her gaze a moment, then nodded once. Charger room. They ran together behind the gurney. In the elevator, the walls breathed antiseptic. Briggs moaned once and then held it inside like he had practiced holding discomfort so it did not spill. In the OR, the air cooled the skin on the back of Ava's neck. The scrub team moved with the clipped grace of habit. She opened along his injured side and took down fractured segments. The ribs stepped out of line like a row of teeth knocked loose. She plated the worst of them and fixed the hinge so the chest would not fight every breath. Blood pooled from a deep vessel, and she found it with a clamp before it could tell a fuller story. Huxley suctioned without instruction. He watched what her hands did and learned their rhythm. He caught the next instrument as if they had practiced. How many procedures like this, he asked, quiet and only for her. Hundreds, Ava said. Where he asked, she set a screw. She did not look up. Various locations. They closed and let Briggs ride the ventilator like a slow sea. His pressure held. His oxygen climbed. They handed him off to recovery with a chest that rose in one piece. Back in the bay, the noise had found an even higher pitch. Nurses shouted times and doses. Gurneys came in wet and left dry. A boy sobbed because he had lost his shoes. His mother's hands shook so hard she could not hold the water cup. Maya kept the board clean, one update after another, head tilted to catch 2 conversations at once. Paramedics burst in with a small bundle wrapped in thermal blankets and a plastic hood. The top blanket was slick with river water. A man came behind them, soaked and gasping mouth forming the same word. Lily, he said, please. The child on the gurney wore a hospital name band. Lily Hart, 6 years old. Her skin had the gray of winter concrete, lips purple at the edges. The monitor picked up a slow, narrow rhythm that acted like it might go out any second. Core temp 89, a medic said. Down 12 minutes, crush injury to left leg. Dr. Elaine Cho appeared at the head of the bed. Chief of staff. Her hands hovered over the girl. She glanced at Ava, then at the numbers. Ava spoke before anyone could decide the wrong way. We warm her slowly. ECMO if we can get it primed. We drain the pericardium first to give the heart space. Then fasciotomy on the left leg. We will try to preserve the spleen. Cho's mouth tightened. She looked at the girl's father, who had stopped breathing like he had forgotten how. Do it, Cho said. Sam moved like the idea had been waiting in his muscles. He called ECMO to the bay. Maya wheeled over the ultrasound again and set it at a height that would keep Ava's shoulders at a sane angle. Diego cut away the pants from the left leg. The skin looked too tight over the muscle, glossy and painful. The foot was cool. Ava slid the probe to the child's chest and found the pericardial fluid. She placed the needle carefully and watched the tip on the screen. She entered the sac and the syringe filled with blood. 20 milliliters. 30. The rhythm on the monitor began to stretch out of its narrow cage. The child's eyelids flickered like a moth. ECMO arrived in a rush of hoses and quiet competence. Sam and a perfusionist established cannulation while Ava set up the leg. She drew a long mark over the lateral compartment and made a careful cut. Muscle bellied up and out. The color went from dusky to something closer to alive. The smell was a mix of blood and antiseptic and river. Pressure returning, Maya said. Temp at 89.5, increasing. Ava opened the abdomen through a small midline incision and went to the left upper quadrant. The spleen showed a long tear that bled in a steady line. She packed it with sponges and pressed. She used hemostatic agent that stuck like careful glue. The oozing slowed. She held pressure and counted with the beeps in the room. Temperature 91, Maya said. 92, heart rate rising. The ECMO machine hummed with a slightly different pitch as warmed blood returned. The girl took a shallow breath that was not the ventilator. Then another. The monitors agreed. The father made a sound like a cut rope tightening. Ava watched the numbers and listened for the small noises that tell truth. She kept her hand on the pack at the spleen. She eased it back and saw no fresh bleed. She placed a drain. She closed the abdomen with short patient stitches. She left the leg open to release pressure because that was the correct promise to make a limb. Temperature 96, Maya said. Lily Hart opened her eyes. They were the blue of a pool over tile. She did not cry. She looked around the room, then at the man near the foot of the bed. She formed a word that sounded dry. Daddy. He put a hand to his mouth and let out a noise that had no name. Cho reached for the bed rail and held it not because she needed support, but because her body asked for something to touch. Ava removed her gloves and stood still for 2 breaths to let the room catch up. Sam said nothing. His eyes were bright and calm. Diego exhaled and looked at his shoes like he wanted to check whether they were on his feet. They transferred Lily to pediatric ICU with ECMO still warming. The father went with them, steps uneven, hand never leaving the blanket. The scrub room took Ava back like a familiar hallway. She stripped her gown and rinsed. Her face in the mirror had salt at the hairline. She pressed cold water into her wrists and felt the echo of river through metal and tile. The door swung open. Huxley entered and let it shut behind him with a soft seal. He did not speak at first. He looked at the floor, at the drain at the edge of Ava's sleeve and the bead of water clinging there. What happened at the river, he said. Sangar, Ava said, 2021. She told it clean. Tracked approach, rotor hit. Cabin full of black water in less than half a minute. 8 soldiers pulled free by hand over 9 minutes. 2 children found too late. Orders to evacuate at 6 minutes. Decision to stay. 18 minutes in all. Cold that ate through to bone. Diesel in the mouth. Hands searching for faces under murk that pushed back. She did not change her tone. She did not look at the mirror where her face might shift. How long were the children down, Huxley asked. 11 by the time I reached them, Ava said. 7 more trying. He did not correct her. He did not explain. He stood and listened in a way that did not feel like judgment. The pipe in the wall clicked once as if it had an opinion. The hallway outside stirred with a different cadence. He and Ava turned when the door opened again. A woman in army dress uniform stepped in. Gray streaks cut through dark hair. The set of her shoulders said she had flown more miles than she cared to count. She carried a slim case and calm that did not bend. Colonel Ruth Pierce, she said. Medical Course Liaison. Cho appeared behind her and moved to the sink. She did not turn on the water. She placed both hands on the edge. Pierce opened the case and laid out a folder with tabs and stamps that had recently been crossed out. She flipped to radio transcripts, flight notes, intelligence digests. The intelligence in your evacuation mission was compromised, Pierce said. Deliberately. The route was flagged hot 14 minutes before departure. The warning did not reach your aircraft. The after-action report that placed fault on your refusal to evacuate was rescinded last year. Your record has been corrected. Ava looked at the pages. Her eyes took in blocks of text as if they were EKG lines. She read numbers and times and call signs that were not supposed to appear on paper so soon. The tight band that had taken residence behind her ribs shifted. Not looser, not heavier, different. Pierce closed the folder. The Army owes you an apology that will not do enough. We are here for more than that. Cho straightened. She had a second folder in her hands now, white hospital letterhead in the corner. She set it down next to the other. We want to build a transition program, Cho said. Military medical to civilian trauma. Fast, accurate with training that respects what people already know. Pierce slid a document across the steel. The paper was simple, a position, a plan. Funding that had signatures in the right places. We want you to lead it, Pierce said. The room went quiet except for water moving somewhere inside the wall. Sam's voice sounded in the hall, talking someone down out of panic. A cart rattled past and then stilled. Pierce uncapped a pen and placed it near the line with Ava's name. The metal clipped once against the paper. The pen waited on the line with her name. The pen waited. The room held to the sound of water moving behind the wall. I will lead it, Ava said, if three things are true. Pierce folded her hands. Cho straightened. First, Ava said full autonomy on curriculum and protocol, no compromise on clinical calls. Agreed, Pierce said. Second, Ava said we build veteran-specific trauma pathways. Fast, accurate, designed for people who make decisions under pressure. Already drafted, Cho said. Third, Ava said this lives with the VA as a partner. Equal access. No backdoors for lesser care. Pierce nodded, signed. One more, Ava said. I stay in the OR 1 day a week. Cho almost smiled. We planned for that. Ava took the pen. She wrote her name in a line that did not shake. She pulled her sleeve once but did not hide the pale edge that showed at the wrist. The ink dried. The band behind her ribs eased by a small degree. They worked. The simulation lab filled with light and noise. Plastic skin split under clean cuts. Chest tubes went in with the right count. Tourniquets cinched to the exact pressure that saves muscle and does not crush it. Ava ran drills where the metronome was the beep of a monitor, and the rule was simple. 90 seconds is a tool. Use it well. Maya handled logistics and made the room run tight. Sam taught lines and airways with the patient calm of someone who hates drama. Diego brought in pre-hospital scenarios that smelled like rain and diesel and road grit. Residents took notes that were more muscle than ink. A few veterans stood at the back, at first sleeves, down eyes watchful. Ava showed a scar for half a second and looked away like it was not an invitation and not a secret. They rolled their sleeves a fraction on the next day. Ava stood in front of a screen at a teaching hospital and showed graphs that climbed where people wanted them to climb. Time to bleed control fell. Survival rose. She ran a case film that did not tell a miracle story, only a series of correct choices made fast enough. Huxley watched from the aisle with arms folded and a face that had learned new ways to be still. On a night that smelled like rain, the pager went out across Grant Mercy and pulled every light toward the bay. Multi-vehicle pileup on I-90, buses and cars, and a delivery truck that had spilled a crate of metal bars. The radios spoke over one another until the triage tags brought order. Ava moved into the rhythm without thinking. She split the space by roles. Airway here, lines there, chest tubes on the carts with the orange tape. She kept her tone low. People listened. An intern froze at the foot of a bed. A man lay with his chest not moving and his eyes open. The intern's hands hovered over the sternum and would not commit. The room moved around her without her. Ava stepped in close. 2 fingers lower, she said. Elbow straight. Commit to depth. The intern blinked hard. She set her hands. The first compression was shallow. Ava put her palm over the intern's and pressed until they felt the correct give. The rhythm caught. The team dropped in around them. The pulse came back small and stubborn. Huxley took a case in the next bay and worked with the pace he used to demand but did not always hold. He looked over once and met Ava's eyes. No words. Agreement anyway. A man came in with a steel bar through the thigh. Diego had braced the bar and tied it down for transport. The patient shook like a jackhammer and apologized for it. You do not need to be sorry, Ava said. You need to be still. Sam had fentanyl ready. The shaking slowed. Ava measured the angle with her eyes and decided on the cut. She saw where the muscle would close and where it would not. She spoke what she needed, and the words landed on instruments at the right time. Maya's board filled and emptied in columns. She called bed assignments to the ICU without sounding like she was bargaining with a storm. She had learned to keep her sentences short when the room needed short. A teenage boy came in with a shoulder wound that looked like an accident and read like a fight. He would not look at anyone. His hands tucked into the folds of the blanket like they wanted to live there. Ava stitched where she needed to and talked him through 3 breaths that did not hurt. The boy looked once at his own shoulder and then at her face. She nodded as if he had made a decision she respected. The first hours burned off and left a steady heat. Head counts balanced, blood supplies held. The board stopped adding red and started clearing yellow. In debrief, the room smelled like sweat and antiseptic and coffee that had gone bitter. Ava took a seat at the end of a table and waited for Huxley to run it. He stood hands on the back of a chair and looked at each face in turn. He did not glance at the clock. He did not rush. "We met the surge," he said. "We held the line. There are notes for improvement. There always are. Tonight something else matters." He looked at Ava. Not a test, not a challenge. Dr. Calder set the standard for tempo and accuracy. We followed it. Keep following it. He sat. The room did not clap. It did not need to. Later, Ava stood by the windows and watched rain streak the glass. The city blurred and then came back into focus. A paramedic laughed in the hall and someone answered with a softer sound. The floor under her feet felt solid and not like a deck that might lift when a rotor beat the air. Her phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Onyekwe. Short, precise. Hospital request list attached. 47 sites, 12 states. A line at the end that was only a title. Morning laid a gray sheet over Chicago. Grant Mercy woke to the hum of vents and the click of badge readers. The simulation lab lights came up in a soft rise. Plastic torsos waited on stainless tables. Monitors blinked into their rhythm. Ava stood at the front with a marker in her hand. The board wore a list of drills written in neat squares. Tourniquet, chest tube, bedside tap, decision under incomplete data. 90 seconds penciled at the edge like a small rule that governed all the others. Jake Torres watched from the second row. Marine tattoo just visible where his sleeve had rolled on its own. He had come quiet on the first day, eyes on the floor jacket zipped to the neck. Now he took a kit apart and put it back together without looking. He caught Ava's eye and nodded once. Deputy was not a title he said out loud. It fit anyway. Maya ran the room like a stage manager. Timers reset before anyone asked. Carts refilled between drills. A coffee appeared at Ava's elbow when the marker went dry. Sam moved station to station, fixing the angle of a hand, the tension in a line the height of a laryngoscope. Diego brought a pre-hospital scenario through the door with a stretcher and a partner who pretended to have panic and could not quite pretend well enough. Laughter broke the room and then folded away when the clock started. Between sessions, Ava set her phone on the counter and scrolled through a folder named Still Breathing. Noah Briggs stood in one of the pictures on a patch of grass with twin girls on his shoulders. All 3 smiled with their whole faces. Frank Delaney wore a suit and tie and had a ribbon on his lapel that matched his daughter's bouquet. He held her arm like it was the first thing he had ever built. Lily Hart, small and fierce, gripped a lunchbox with cartoon stars and looked at a school door like it might look back. Ava tapped the screen and let the images tile the glass. She felt the pull of the river in her chest and watched it recede the way a tide retreats when the angle of the shore changes. By noon, the lab emptied into the hall. The group fanned into clinics and floors and an ambulance bay where the day kept moving. Ava wiped the marker lines from the board. The faint trail left behind looked like a map someone had folded too many times. Huxley found her in the corridor with a stack of charts under one arm. He looked different by a degree that did not show up on paper. The angle of the shoulders, the set of the jaw that had learned to pause. "Debrief at 4, he said. "Then you have the OR. He waited. "That schedule works," Ava said. He did not say good work. He did not need to. He stood there long enough for thanks to find the surface of the moment on its own. Both moved on. In the afternoon, the program's office filled with binders that did not look like binders. Thin and white and labeled by hospital instead of by name. Riverbend in Ohio. St. Luke's in Arizona. St. Francis in Oregon. 47 in all. A map with pins hung over a low cabinet. The pins made a constellation across 12 states. They looked like they had always wanted to be stars. Colonel Pierce sat at the small table reading a report. She wore civilian clothes and still looked like rank. She had a habit of setting a pen down with the clip aligned to the paper edge. Dr. Onyekwe was on speaker. Her voice came through the box clean and careful. Numbers are holding, Onyekwe said. Time to definitive care keeps dropping. Fewer early exits from the VA pipeline. Ava watched the curve on a graph where line met line and both did what they were told. She set the folder aside and poured water into a cup. We need a second cohort for instructors, Pierce said. Jake can lead the first track. He can, Ava said. Maya leaned in at the door with a message from ICU that needed Ava's signature. She passed it through, collected a return, and faded back out before the phone could ring again. The OR called. Ava scrubbed at a sink where the water ran hot enough to make the skin pink. The smell of chlorhexidine cut through the afternoon. She pulled her cap on and rolled her sleeves to her wrists. She did not pull them past the pale band of scar. She left the edge of it visible as if it belonged in this air. The case moved with quiet ease. A stubborn appendix. A line that wanted to be difficult and then decided not to be. Sam stood at her shoulder when she needed a retractor for 5 seconds and not 6. The attending across the table made a joke that did not work on anyone. Ava smiled anyway. She closed with small stitches that lay flat and honest. The patient breathed without drama. The monitor met her at 90 seconds when she counted without deciding to count. After the case, she took the stairs up 2 flights to the roof. The door let out the smell of tar and rain. The city stretched wide and gray in every direction. The river cut through it in a slow, dark curl. The wind carried the faint chemical tang from a factory to the south. A helicopter crossed the far edge of the skyline and grew along its line. The blade noise arrived after the body. It washed over her and then slid away. Her shoulders did not lift. Her jaw did not set. The noise moved through her without taking anything. The rotor wash never reached the roof, but the memory of it did. She set her hands on the rail until the metal cooled her palms. Her phone shook against her thigh. She answered without looking. Calder, she said. Trauma Bay needs an attending, Maya said, 2 minutes out. On my way, Ava said. She took the stairs down, feet quiet, breath steady. The corridor caught her and pulled her toward the light. The sleeve at her wrist slipped. She let it stay where it wanted to. The badge reader clicked. The doors opened. The bay was bright and loud. Sirens ghosted on the edge of hearing. Nurses tugged gloves into place with a snap that sounded crisp and sure. Jake already had a cart in position. Diego's radio crackled with a short burst of code. Sam rolled a tray up to the line between what had happened and what might. Ava stepped into her station. The room closed around her like a glove that fit. The monitors chimed into the beat she knew. 90 seconds nested inside each decision. Cold lived here only where it saved a brain and not where it took it. Water stayed on the outside of doors. She set her palm on the bedrail and drew the first breath with the room. The old words belonged to people who had earned them, but they lived here too. Ravens do not quit. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.